This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and once again, we are living large here. This is the Samsung Galaxy Mega 2. As you can guess from that Mega name, it's a big phone. This is a 6-inch phone. However, this is not a high-end piece like the Nexus 6 was. This is meant to be more affordable. It's $149 with contract on AT&T, $475 without contract. But is it worth it? You'll find out now. Living large. No, this is not a really big comparison of big phones right here. Just showing you that the Samsung Galaxy Mega 2 here among its large screen compatriots of various price points. Nexus 6, $649 full retail price versus $475 for our Mega 2. Right here we have the last generation Samsung Galaxy Note 3, also about the same price, $149 with contract as the Mega 2, and a higher resolution display, a better quality display, a much faster CPU, and S Pen, more features. Okay, you get the idea where this is going already. And here we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, one of the more expensive phones you can buy, considerably more money. Understandable, if you've got the money for the Mega 2, you might not have the money for the Note 3. And then here we have our funny little flexible phablet, the LG G Flex, also a big screen, also 720p. Interesting curvy design, somewhat better internals inside. So just so you see the playing field here, from about the same price, the Flex about the same price, the Note 3, to phones that are more expensive. So obviously the Mega 2 is for you big screen loving people right here. 6-inch display, but only 720p, 1280 by 720. It is an LCD, not Super AMOLED. So for those of you who love the rich, better-than-life colors of Super AMOLED, the inky blacks and stuff, you're not getting that here. But for those of you who don't like Super AMOLED and prefer more natural-looking colors, well, you'll be happy. This is not the wildly brightest LCD we've ever seen or the most color-saturated, but it's not bad. It's okay. For a $99 phone, I would say cool. For a $149 phone on contract, I'd say, well, all right. In terms of design and looks, it looks a lot like, well, Samsung's last generation Note 3 phone. That is to say, you get the faux chrome sides over here, and you get the faux leather back with the stitching. The stitching is back just when it started to disappear from Samsung phones, but they only do it a bit on the sides. They don't go all the way around this time. And this is a removable back. Our speaker is right there. 8-megapixel camera with an LED flash. AT&T phone, so big old AT&T logo right there. And to take off the back, there's a little pry point, as is usually the case with Samsung phones. Take our back off, voila. There's the battery, 2,800 milliamps, a bit less capacity than some other phablets, really big phones, but the CPU and the screen resolution would make it seem as though you really don't need so much battery oomph. Micro SIM card slot here, it really doesn't need a nano SIM, does it? And it's stackable with a micro SD card slot up top, so you can expand storage. This phone has 16 gigs of internal storage and a sort of oddball 1.5 gigs of RAM. We've seen 1.5 gigs before, not so often, but well, obviously it's better than 1, but not as good as 2. This does have Samsung TouchWiz with all of those features on board that do like to eat up some of that RAM, but it manages okay despite that. Up top here, the headphone jack, and on this side we have the volume rocker, and I'm surprised they didn't drop it down a little bit, because most people, and I have really quite big hands, most people would probably have some trouble reaching that one-handed. If you drop the phone down, you can, but just don't drop the phone when you're doing that. And on this side we have the power button right there, and on the bottom the micro USB 2.0 port for charging and for copying data to and from your computer to the phone. Standard Samsung physical home button here with the capacitive keys that light up when you touch the screen or you touch the buttons right there. Now this is running Android KitKat 4.4.4 with Samsung's usual TouchWiz software. If you're a Samsung person, then it's all going to seem very familiar to you, and if you like Samsung software, you'll be thrilled. The usual wild amount of bloatware that's on here from AT&T, they put a lot of apps on these days, most of which you can hide but you can't remove. Samsung has some, I wouldn't call it bloatware, most of it actually has some value-added stuff, their own music player, their own video player, those things are pretty nice, portals to their content, and of course their customized settings right here, and you can change the view type if you like as well. couple of neat things that are here. Multi-window is here, even though this is a lower horsepower machine. It's not turned on by default, but you can turn it on as we did right there. And then you get the usual Samsung pull tab for multitasking where you can drag two applications over. So say we want the web browser up here. Then we want the My Files file manager there. And you can resize them as you see fit. So that's pretty cool. And we have one-handed operation, so you can set it as you see fit there, drop it down to one side and a bit lower, so it makes it easier, say, to use the dialer. And toolbox, this is interesting. You got, if you turn it on right here, you can have floating persistent shortcuts right there if you want to get to applications. Swiping all the way over that way gets you to Samsung's My Magazine, which is sort of like Flipboard customized for Samsung. Their usual weather widget there with the time on there. Their really bizarre geo news, which will let you know if an earthquake's going to be happening in your area, something like that. I don't know. It's gloomy and not very useful, so I usually just do what probably a lot of other people do, is just take it off of my home screen right there. In terms of specs here, you already know about the display and the size of the phone. So we've got dual band Wi-Fi 802.11bgn. No AC here. It is not your top dog phone. Bluetooth 4.0, a GPS with GLONASS, and NFC with ISIS Mobile Payments, which is the partner that AT&T prefers. Inside, well, that's a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core Exynos, that's Samsung CPU, 4415 with Mali 400 graphics. Mali 400 graphics, those of you who are phone enthusiasts are probably stretching your memories back a bit, about 2 years or so, and say, oh, I remember that. So you get the idea here that basically you're looking at 2-year-old performance in this phone. Now, given how powerful a lot of phones are, what was flagship 2 years ago isn't necessarily all that bad now, but it's okay in terms of performance. On Quadrant, it scored 9,937, which is about half of what today's Snapdragon 801 and 805 CPUs score, or the top Exynos CPUs, which we don't tend to see in this country because they are rarely paired with LTE chipsets. By the way, this one has an Ericsson cell radio chipset on board. On Antutu, 24,816, not too bad. We usually see around 40,000 on flagships, or 45,000. 3D Mark Ice Storm Unlimited, that's where that Mali 400 graphics really hurts. 4182 for a score. That's about down about as low as 1/4 of what we see on flagships. Sun Spider, the WebKit JavaScript test, 1215. Usually Samsung phones score pretty well, but this guy right here, well, at lower numbers are better here. That's still not a terrible number by any means. Just not as fast as the Note 4. Of course, it is less expensive, particularly at full retail, than the Note 4. Geekbench 3, 444 for the single-core test and 1379 for the multi-core test, about half, again, of the flagships. So, like I said, not everybody needs all that. The challenge here is, though, with Samsung TouchWiz, it does have a lot of software going on here. There's a lot of applications that Samsung adds on, a lot of UI overlays. For example, that multitasking right here, notice how it clears out what it's had there really quickly because it's trying to conserve some memory here and some horsepower. So TouchWiz does occasionally lag. You'll see it even more here than you would certainly on something like the Note 3 or the Note 4. So how about the camera? It's an 8 megapixel camera, which in and of itself isn't that bad. I don't believe you need lots and lots of megapixels to have a good camera here. Still, it's a little hit and miss. Sometimes focus is a bit off and shooting time's a little slow, so sometimes you'll get blurred pictures. So particularly if you have moving subjects, I suggest you take a bunch of pictures. The good news is you get Samsung's usual camera software and UI here, which I like quite a lot. You can choose between your modes, and it's very intuitive here. Usual panorama, virtual tour, continuous shot, HDR. You can download more modes. That's pretty nice too right there. And access to a bunch of settings. You can see that lag right there. There's just a little lag on this phone. So you can choose the picture size, and you can see 8 megapixel will be at a 4:3 aspect ratio, so that's going to give us a bar on the side here. Various effects, recording modes, you've got face detection. It's a pretty rich experience. You can also shoot 1080p video, and you can do tap to focus right there. Switch to video mode, and it immediately starts recording the minute you do that. Not that that's going to be the most exciting video right there of our Note 3. And you have access to what you've been doing right down here in the gallery section. And there's our gallery of the pictures we took. There's reasonably good detail right there. It's not that bad at all. Your choice of Samsung's video player or the built-in one. So not too shabby. So despite the relatively low resolution for the display size, we have 245 ppi pixel density. It's not really that bad looking. Here's our homepage on Mobile Tech Review. It's not bad, folks. You know, not at all. So let's look at a video and see how it does there. Well, I wouldn't call it wildly sharp, but it's again not that bad looking. I'd like to see a little bit more color saturation. Never thought I'd get to say that about a Samsung phone, since it's an LCD, probably just so used to the Super AMOLED vividness on them, but it's not bad at all. It's okay, again. The phone certainly has enough horsepower to play games like Plants vs. Zombies. Asphalt 8, a little sluggish and jittery. This is not a hardcore gamer's phone. Again, look to the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 if you want really better gaming performance there, because it has a significantly faster CPU inside. But for casual games like Plants vs. Zombies, things like that, Temple Run even, it's fine for that sort of thing. Battery life, the 2800 milliamp hour battery in here, given the relatively not so fast CPU and the 720p resolution display, you would think it'd be pretty good, but that's still a 6-inch panel there to power up. So it will last all day with moderate use, and I mean from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. or so, but it's not going to be a 2-day phone if you're a moderate to heavy user. Certainly if you're going to use a GPS, and if you're going to be playing a lot of Temple Run, you'll have to plug it in sooner, but it's easily a full day phone for most of us, not much more. So there it is, the Mega 2. No longer are we seeing different sizes available, just one 6-inch model right here. And if you're really sold on Samsung and you're really sold on a big screen, and both of those are understandable, it's not a bad choice. As you've gotten the idea that I'm really pushing the Note 3 here as a more superior piece of hardware for your price in terms of speed, a nicer screen, lots more features on board too. And if you're interested in novel competition sort of thing, there is things like the LG G Flex with its curved 6-inch display, also 720p, but not a bad display overall, to tell the truth. So there it is, the Samsung Galaxy Mega 2. It's sort of like a budget phablet, but the price, honestly, I think isn't budget enough for what you get. I would choose something like last year's Samsung Galaxy Note 3. Still a fine phone and better in every way, and selling for the same price. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.